Good evening and welcome to this Development Control Committee meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 5th of November 2020. Council members in attendance are Councillor Frank Cant, Chair of Development Control, Councillor Mark Payne, Vice Chair of Development Control. Other councillors in attendance are Councillors Anwar, Birtwistle, Graham, Hall, Harbour, Ishtiaq, Johnston, Kelly, Mottershead, Sumner and Khan. Also in attendance, requesting to speak are members of the public, Kathy Bibby, who is speaking on item 6C. Council officers in attendance are Paul Gattrell, Head of Housing and Development Control, Alec Hickey, Planning Team Manager, Amanda Rumbelow, Property Solicitor, Christine Wood, Democracy Officer, Alison McEwen, Democracy Officer, streaming the meeting, and Chris Gay, Governance Manager, hosting the meeting. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Right, first item on the agenda is apologies.
Apologies from Councillor Chowdhury, Saeed Chowdhury, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Then second is the minutes of the last meeting. I'll move those minutes if someone would please second them.
I'll second them, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. And have we any additional items of business?
No, Chair. Chair, would you mind just clarifying? Sorry to ask you to go back to the minutes. Would you mind just clarifying that two sets of minutes are being approved? There were some minutes circulated this afternoon, but some minutes of the 1st of October and the minutes of the 8th of October. Have they both been approved?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I'll
thank you for that.
Those, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, to declarations of interest now. I have not received any declarations of interest.
Right. So we'll move to exclusion of the public.
As per agenda.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
And list of deposited plans and applications. The first one we've got tonight is number 55 Grassington Drive. Now I believe Alec is going to present this one.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the application is HOU 2020-0183. It's for a two-storey side extension with a single-storey rear extension. It's a resubmission of an application that officers refused earlier this year, and they've come in with an amended scheme. We have received one objection, which is why it's come before the committee. With regards to the application site itself, it is within the defined development boundary, and it compromises a three-bed, two-storey semi-detached house, which sits on a substantial corner plot. It's constructed facing brick, grey UPVC windows, and concrete tiled roof. And in terms of consultations, we have had comments from LCC Highways, who raised some concerns with regards to the need for additional parking, and also an objection from one of the neighbouring properties on the grounds of blocking natural light and an unpleasant view. The main considerations in dealing with the application are consider the impact on the character of the area with regards to design and appearance, and also impact on amenity. Assessing the application that has been through some revisions, officers consider that the design is now acceptable. It does sit within a very large corner plot. It is set down and set back at first floor. And whilst it does have a similar width to the existing building, it is considered to be subordinate and sufficient in design. With regards to the comments from LCC Highways, it's noted that there wouldn't be a loss of parking, and officers consider that the further loss of any front garden to achieve additional parking wouldn't be sufficient, given the current drive that's available and also the availability of on-street parking. With regards to the impact on the amenity of neighbours, officers have done a site visit and to get an understanding of the relationship. Again, whilst it is a a large extension, it is considered a sufficient distance away from other properties to ensure that it wouldn't be overbearing or give rise to any impacts of privacy. Officers don't consider that the loss of view is a material matter that we can look at in terms of determining the application, and therefore we're recommending approval subject to the conditions set out. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. So, any member wishing to speak?
No requests received at this point, Chair.
Move it,
No.
Chairman.
Can I second that?
Right, so it's been moved by councillor Birtwistle, seconded by councillor Graham. So we'll move to the vote.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to approve the application. So councillor Cant, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Payne, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Birtwistle, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Graham, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Hall, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor John Harbour, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Mohammed Ishtiaq, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus Johnson, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Anne Kelly, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Lubna Khan, are you for approval or against approval? Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Approval.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Sumner, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
And Councillor Marta said, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
For approval. The application is approved. Thank you.
Can I just ask why I weren't asked? Councillor Hosker.
I didn't. Sorry, Councillor Hosker, I didn't think you were here.
Councillor Hosker's now joined the meeting, Chair. Sorry, I did put a message on, but yes, Councillor Hosker is obviously here. Thank you.
Apologies for that, Councillor Hosker. Are you for approval or against approval?
For. But yeah, I
Thank
thought you'd
you.
had everything monitored.
Pardon?
I thought you'd had everything monitored. Not on your toes tonight, are you?
Apologies for that, Councillor Hosker. Thank you. The application is approved.
Right, thank you very much. So we'll move
Thank
on to
you.
the next item, item 6B, 25 Oaken Eaves Avenue, Burnley. Again, if the officer, if Alec would like to submit the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the application is HOU 2020-0403. It is 25 Oaken Eaves Avenue, and it's for a proposed extension to the roof, which includes a pipe dormer, additional Velux roof lights, and the erection of an outbuilding. The application is at committee because we have received objections from a neighbour. The site itself is a semi-detached bungalow, which sits on the corner of Micklehurst Crescent and Oaken Eaves Avenue. It's previously been extended to the side, which included a front and rear pipe dormer, and it's surrounded by similar properties, albeit none of the others have had any additions to the roof. The application was refused towards the end of last year, as it was considered that the proposal put forward by design of that dormer would have visual harm to the character of the area. Subsequently, the applicant has engaged with officers to come up with an acceptable design. I say the application now seeks consent for a rear pipe dormer with a Velux roof in the centre to give a balance to the existing Velux that was approved previously, in addition to 3 front Velux roof lights. There is also the application also seeks an outbuilding, which is to be situated to the rear and would sit 3 metres from the boundary of the property, be 5.6 metres in length, 3.2 metres to the ridge and 2.3 metres to the eaves. It'd be a brick-built concrete roof structure. With regards to consultations, no objection from the parish council. One objection received from neighbours was summarised as loss of privacy to the garden and impact on character of the area. No objection from the Highways Authority. With regards to the design, as I say, officers have spent a considerable period of time engaging with the applicant and his agent to come up with a design that is appropriate for this dwelling as it sits on a prominent corner plot. We feel that balance has now been achieved with the aims of the local plan to ensure that we get high quality design. In terms of residential amenity, officers do accept that it would give rise to a potential degree of overlooking. However, given that there is an existing dormer in situ, and given the scale and siting of the proposed dormer, it's not considered that it would be sufficient to harm the amenity of any adjacent properties through any overlooking or any privacy issues, and therefore we're recommending approval subject to the conditions set out. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that. So over to members.
Yes, Councillor Marcus Johnson, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question. I'm afraid I don't know what a pike dormer is. Could you tell me what a piked dormer is, please? The reference is on page 36.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just bear with me 1 second. I'll just get to the appropriate page. So if you have a look at page 35, where you can see the existing dormers that are in place, essentially, yeah, that is a pike dormer or dual pitched dormer. There's different terminologies, but essentially it's to replicate the dormer style that you can see in photo 2 at the rear of the property.
So it's as Councillor Kelly has educated me by going like that.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm up to speed now on piked dormers.
Right. Does anyone else wish to come in?
Happy to move it.
There isn't any request to speak, Chair, but just to inform you that Councillor Gill has now joined the meeting.
All right, thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Kelly
I'll second it.
and seconded by Councillor Graham. Unless anyone else wants to come in, we'll move to the vote.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Councillor, yes, so the motion is to approve the planning application. So
Yep.
Councillor Cant, are you for approval or against approval?
I'm for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Payne, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Hosker, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Afrez Anwar, are you for approval or against approval? Councillor Anwar? We
Sorry,
lost Councillor Anwar.
for.
For approval, thank you. Councillor Gordon Birchwhistle, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Peter Gill, are you for approval or against approval?
Chair, just apologies to you. Unfortunately, Councillor Gill is unable to vote on this item as he wasn't in the meeting for the start of the item.
I
Oh.
was going to
Right.
abstain due to that reason as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Sue Graham, are you for approval of the application or against?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Hall, are you for approval or against the application?
For.
Councillor John Harbour, are you for approval of the application or against?
For.
Councillor Mohammed Ishaq, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Marcus Johnson, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Anne Kelly, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Luna Khan, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Jeff Sumner, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
And Councillor Neil Mottershead, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Thank you. So the motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Right, so if we move on now, we've got 143 St James Street, Burnley. On this item, we have a speaker, Miss is it Kathy
Bibby?
Bibby? Yes.
Yes.
So if we can bring Kathy Bibby in, and
Can you hear me okay?
yes, fine.
Thank you,
yeah.
Chair.
Whenever,
Thank you, Chair.
whenever you're ready, you've got 5 minutes in which to put your case.
Okay, thank you, Chair. As you say, I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of this application this evening, which is at 143 St James Street, Burnley, for the continued use private hire office, but with revised parking arrangements. So the application comprises of an existing private hire office that has been established since the 1980s. The current application only seeks to change the number of vehicles that can operate from the premises and proposes suitable car parking arrangements. So all the car parking is located conveniently across a number of sites and within 100 metres of the office, which complies with council policy, as well as being available 24 hours a day. There is sufficient parking for the operation of 60 vehicles by providing 24 parking spaces. And this percentage at 40% has been agreed with the council. The applicant reduced the number of vehicles that would operate to 60 from 75 initially sought, following comments from the Lancashire County Council Highways. The growth in automation has enabled private hire companies to operate more efficiently with less need for customers and drivers to visit the booking office. Most drivers move from job to job, picking up fares in their area depending on where they are. So although despite this, a good number of parking spaces have been provided, are being provided if needed, and that's illustrated in the plan that was submitted and set out in the officer's report. It is noted that there is a single objection that was raised around parking and traffic, but the application will meet its own parking requirement and provides a generous level of parking provision similar to that agreed by the council elsewhere in the town centre on Croft Street. So to summarise, this application will enable private hire operators who provide a valued local service to do so in a more sustainable way using the latest technology in automation. As you can see from the council report, the application has been thoroughly assessed and taken into account. There is one objection, but I would ask that the application is supported this evening in line with the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Right, so if we could bring Alec back in, who will present this case.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the application 143 St James's Street, which is FUL 2020-0188. As noted by the speaker, it has been in operation since the 1980s as a taxi booking office, and the application that's before the committee is simply a matter of a variation of condition and not an assessment of the principle of the use. The application is seeking to amend the number of vehicles that can operate from the premises, which would be 60, and provide a total of 24 car parking spaces. As you can see from the site history in the report, there has been a number of amendments to this as different operators have took over the use of the building. As noted, there is an objection that's been received, and while some of those are considered on the planning merits, some are also matters for the Highways Authority, who have been engaged quite thoroughly in this application. It has been with us for some time. They have offered no objection. However, they have requested that a condition is placed on there that does prevent any parking, to ensure parking is within 100 metres of the office, which officers agree with. In terms of the assessment itself, there is a specific policy within the local plan, which is policy SE7, that sets out the various criteria that need to be looked at when assessing an application for a taxi booking office. as noted, it is the principle has already been established, and it's whether the proposed variation would give rise to any additional harm. Within criterions 1 and 2, it looks at the location of the use, which, as noted in the report, is considered acceptable. Criterion 3, which regards clustering, there aren't considered any other premises of a similar type within the area. On points 4, 5, and 6, with regards to parking, it is noted that it does fall below the general requirement that we would ask for with a 1 space per 1 vehicle parking space. However, as noted in the application itself and comments with officers from the applicant, the booking office does use an automated booking system with the aim of getting drivers to jobs and staying on the road rather than having to return to the office. This approach has been agreed with LCC Highways, who find it acceptable. And therefore, with regards to the parking element of the scheme, officers believe it can be supported as there's no detrimental harm. In terms of amenity, it's advised as part of point 7 that development shouldn't have a detrimental impact on the character or amenity of the area, particularly with regard to increased traffic movement, noise, vehicle fumes, or other nuisance. Obviously, officers accept that there would likely be some increased traffic movement because the number of vehicle spaces would be increased. However, this isn't considered to be detrimental. It is a small number. It's expected that vehicles would already be out on site with limited need to return to the office, which again would ensure that there is minimal noise, vehicle fumes, or other nuisance provided the application is approved. As such, officers recommend the approval of the variation subject to the conditions set out. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that. And now we'll move over to members. Any member wishing to speak?
No requests to speak, Mr. Chief Chair.
Would somebody like to?
I'm
move?
happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Right, yes, so moved by councillor Kelly, and I'm not
I,
sure.
I believe I got in before Councillor Graham there. It's Councillor Anwar.
Right, okay. Right, so in that case,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the motion is to approve the application. So, councillor Kant, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
I'm for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Payne, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Councillor Anwar, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For.
Councillor Twistle, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For.
Councillor Gill, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Graham, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Hall, are you for approval or against approval?
For approval.
Councillor John Harbour, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For.
Councillor Alan Foster, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
Hang on a minute.
For.
For, thank you. Councillor Mohammed Ishtiaq, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For.
Councillor Marcus Johnson, are you for approval or against approval of the application? Thank you. Councillor Anne Kelly, are you for approval or against approval of the
For.
application? Thank you. Councillor Lubna Khan, are you for approval or against approval?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Sumner, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For approval, please.
And Councillor Neil Mottershead, are you for approval or against approval of the application? Thank you. So the motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And moving on to item 6D, which is land off Rosendale Road. Again, with no speakers on this one, if Alec would like to come in, present your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the application is OUT 2019-0625. It is land off Rosendale Road on the allocated site EMP 11, which is known as Rosendale Road North. It's an outline application for the development of new industrial estate comprising of units under the use class B1 and B2 with the approval of access and layout only. All other matters are reserved. It's with the committee as we have received objections from neighbours, Lancashire Wildlife Trust and Burnley Wildlife Conservation Forum. The application site itself is located south of the borough and accessed from Rosendale Road and sits south of Farrington Road Industrial Estate. The area itself is characterised by a mix of residential and employment uses, and it lies within the development boundary with open countryside surrounding the site to all but its eastern edge. The application site itself covers 3.6 hectares of grazing land. There is a gentle slope to the site rising north to east and a shallow stream ditch that runs south to north across the site. As noted, the application site forms part of a larger parcel of land on the allocated employment site EMP1/1 Rosendale Road North, which states that the site will be acceptable for B1, B and C and B2 uses, subject to the specific requirements of the policy. The proposal itself is for 10,200 square metres of B1B, B1C and B2 uses that would be split across 35 individual units ranging in size from 200 metres to 600 square metres. The application also includes a new access from Rosendale Road. As noted, it is an outline application, so all of the matters, with the exception of the access and outline, are for future approval. This is a speculative development, so the applicant has chosen not to identify the split of the proposed business uses so that they can be dealt with at a later stage. The internal layout that's proposed shows the access roads, service yards, pedestrian and cycle routes, additionally cycle storage, and will provide for 166 parking spaces. This layout has been designed in accordance with the requirements of the EMP 11, with the majority of the development located to the west of the stream in rows of low-rise terraces facing shared service yards. As you'll notice in the report, there are quite a number of site constraints that the application has to overcome. While some of those are principally looked at the outline, a number of those would be considered as part of the reserved matters. The application has been with us quite some time, as there's been extensive negotiation with LCC Highways. Subsequently, the applicant and the Highways Authority have reached an agreement where the Highways Authority can support the application subject to the conditions set out, and also the agreement of a Section 278 for off-site highways works. Additionally, there have been a number of concerns raised around the ecological matters of the site, and the council have engaged with our team at GMEU Manchester, who've summarised in the report the matters that they consider that need addressing, particularly around protected sites, noting that they have no further recommendations, habitats that they feel that subject to carrying out the development in accordance with the conditions set out, and the ecology report submitted, there would be no harmful impact on habitats. Similarly with protected nesting ground birds, they acknowledge that whilst there would be some loss of ground, the area adjacent to the site is a much more appropriate space, and they're not offering any additional mitigation. It's been advised that the landscape itself, whilst it potentially does offer some foraging areas, they are considered to be low, and similarly for bat roosting. There was no other sign of protected species when the reports were undertaken. However, there are recommendations set out in the report that outline how any unexpected species that are found on site can be mitigated against and protected. The environmental health team have offered no objections subject to the imposition of conditions. Again, no comment from Natural England. The Coal Authority note that it is in a high-risk area and additional studies would be required. Lancashire Police, again, no objection, offering matters of security. It is noted that Lancashire Wildlife Trust have objected. The 3 points set out in the report. They do advise that no ecology survey was available. That was subsequently made available, and no additional comments were forthcoming. The application does not take into account the ecological networks. However, as the officers have identified in the report, the site itself is not in a network, but forms part of its wider corridor. And finally, as part of the MPPF, they do note that there should be a net gain in biodiversity/nature. It should be noted that the bill that was due to come out before the end of this year that would have made that a requirement in policy, unfortunately has been delayed until next year, and therefore it's just a matter for officers to consider the local plan at this point. The Burnley Wildlife Conservation Forum, again, they note that there would be a loss of habitat and landscaping, and the mitigation is inappropriate for the loss of breeding and upland bird species. The Parish Council objected for the reasons set out, and similar the reasons set out in the 4 letters of objection from neighbours. It should be noted when looking at this application, it is an outline application, so therefore there are only certain matters can consider, particularly around the mix of the employment uses, which again considered to be compliant with the site allocation. All the other matters are ones that will be considered when a reserve matters application will be submitted. So as noted, the principle of the development is accepted within the local plan. The overall balance of the scheme put forward at the moment, simply with access and layout, is principally considered to be in accordance with the policies of the local plan. The layout, as noted within the plan submitted, it's generally policy compliant. However, further details in terms of heights and massing would come forward as part of reserve matters. There's not considered to be any detriment impacts shown so far through the layout. And in terms of energy efficiency, a BREEAM statement advising that the scheme could achieve a very good rating in accordance with the policy SP5 has been set out. As such, we accept the layout, including design and efficiency, to be appropriate. It's noted that the car parking standards are below what we would expect, falling between 38 and 50% short. However, as noted in the report, the application plan that was submitted, as such, we consider that the parking, highways and transport impacts are acceptable, subject to the 278 agreement for the offsite highways works that have been put forward in the report. As you can see, they include a number of things that would need to be submitted in there. So the provision of a right turn onto Rosendale Road, the pedestrian island, street lighting, additional traffic calming measures, and regulation orders extending further south for a 30-mile-an-hour zone. There has been a number of complaints received around ecology. As noted, there's quite a substantive review of the mitigation and enhancement features that have been put forward. Officers have taken guidance from our ecology experts, who've advised that whilst there is some expected loss because of the site coming forward, that the mitigation and enhancement measures put forward are suitable to ensure that a development wouldn't result in any net loss for ecology within the area. As you'll see, there are other considerations with design and impact. Again, that would be principally looked at as part of the reserve matters. Impact on neighbouring amenity. Given that we only have layout at the moment, the Council's Environmental Health Officer agrees with the officer recommendation for a noise assessment as part of reserve matters, so that we can ensure any future development doesn't give rise to any acceptable impact on noise-sensitive receptors. There will be a requirement for additional desktop studies on contamination and coal mining. Flood risk, as noted, the site is within flood zone 1 and is at low risk of flooding. However, the flood risk assessment and drainage strategy would also give rise to additional flood prevention measures to future-proof the site. It's considered that because the allocation sets out specific uses, officers would seek to restrict the uses to those required by the policy in order to support the application. As such, Chair, we recommend that the application is approved subject to the conditions set out. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So over to members.
Yes, councillor Birtwistle, Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair.
go ahead. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Well, I've listened to the response from our officer, and his first comment that it's on a gentle slope, I would suggest is somewhat incorrect. I mean, the slope at the top is at least 45 degrees, so it's not a gentle slope. It is a natural floodplain at the bottom, near the houses at the bottom, and there is a lot of ecology. There are a lot of birds of prey that live around that area and feed in that area. There's a lot of mice and a lot of voles that they feed on. It is not an area of what you would call natural beauty, but it's an area it is a natural grassed area that's been there for obviously many, many years. The mining, as members will know, there's an attempt to get planning permission to build houses at the top of the hill. And there's been some surveys, some developers has been doing some drilling up there and discovered some shallow mines that are no more than 5 meters deep that are not registered by National Coal Board. They are old private mines that used to go horizontally into the face of the hill. So they are still there. So as the hill is basically dug away to make this a level site, and obviously they'll have to provide a substantial retaining wall. I mean, goodness knows what the retaining wall is going to be like to hold that hill back. Then they will come into the mining area. I don't understand why they want to build an industrial estate there when 100 yards down the road there are 2 industrial estates, Farrington Road and Billington Road. Both have all the structures in, the roads are all in, the drains are all in, and there is plenty of room round the back of both of these estates to build industrial units. I'm not against building industrial units. We need industrial units. But if you go down the Farrington Road estate right to the bottom, there is ample room round the back to build industrial units, as there is on Billington Road. Now, why we want to build industrial units on an area there, on a road that's 4 lanes wide, on a steep hill where the traffic comes very fast down there, completely is beyond reprehension to me. I just can't understand the thoughts behind it at all. I mean, a 40-foot articulated truck pulling out onto that road with one of the busiest roads in Burnley, the traffic running down that road at substantial, I know it's a 30-mile-an-hour limit, but sorry, it's 40-mile-an-hour limit there, and most traffic does exceed that. There is no way that a truck will get out without somebody running into it. It's a very slow process getting a large 40-foot articulated wagon down there. It is the wrong place to build an industrial estate for many, many, many reasons. So I can tell you now, I will be voting against this tonight, and I hope the committee vote against this, because this is the wrong place to build this, when there is plenty of room 100 yards down the road on the existing estates that are there. I just don't know why the developer hasn't gone down there and looked round the back of Farrington Road, where he doesn't have to build roads, he doesn't have to build any infrastructure at all. It's all there, and builds an extension to Farrington Road and to Billington Road to get these new industrial units that we seem to want in Burnley. Thank you, Chairman.
yeah, thank you, councillor Birtwistle.
Councillor Graham, Chair.
Yeah, councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. It won't surprise you to know that I will be voting for this application. The land is allocated for industrial use in the local plan. Now that means quite a number of things. First of all, it means that it's within the urban boundary. The sites that Councillor Birtwistle was referring to have been investigated for employment use, but not found to be suitable, and are even further outside of the urban boundary. So it's within the urban boundary. The ecology of the site was looked at in a great deal of detail when we had the public inquiry into the local plan. both Lancashire Wildlife Trust and the Burnley Conservation Forum objected to this site, but it was examined in detail, and council's ecological experts at that time said that it was suitable for development. And of course, that means if it's been examined in public, it means it's been before a planning inspector, and a planning inspector has deemed it suitable for employment use. The road is busy, yes, and certainly at times it's very busy. But LCC are happy with the traffic arrangements, and unless they oppose a site on highways grounds, then we cannot refuse it on highways grounds. So for a very great number of reasons, this site has been investigated, checked out, etc., etc. It's found to be suitable for employment use. If we were to go against the officer advice and turn down a site that's allocated for employment use in our local plan, our adopted local plan, then we'd be on an absolute hiding to nothing in any kind of inquiry afterwards. So your officers will, I'm sure, be advising you that, that there are no reasons for refusal, no sound reasons for refusal, and that we should follow the officer advice. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Graham.
I'd also move the approval whilst I'm at it.
Right, so yes, you're moving for approval.
Chair, sorry, Chair. Councillor Birtwistle, Councillor Hoscar and Councillor Harbour.
Yeah, we'll take Councillor Harbour first.
Thank you, Chair. I will be seconding Councillor Graham on this, but I also recognise that there will be an impact on residents who overlook this proposed new development, and there will be an impact on the traffic on Rosendale Road, and I don't think we should shy away from that. But the fact is that I think that impact will be reasonable and workable. What we never seem to talk about is what positive impact it will have on future jobs for this town. We've been discussing and debating over recent weeks about the effect of COVID and what it's doing to businesses. And here is an ideal opportunity, in my opinion, to show people that we are a forward-looking town and we're looking to create jobs for everyone across the borough, not just in that area, and that it won't just affect people in that area who overlook it. I think we need to make the applicant aware, and I think they already are aware, that if this does come off, then we will be looking for high quality landscaping. We will be looking for high quality mitigation against the effects of the scheme. But colleagues should be aware of this now, that sometimes borough councils on the planning committee have got to make difficult decisions. It's easy to shy away and vote against these proposals, but we're voting for proposals what are going to affect the whole borough and not just that little corner of the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. So I'll bring in Councillor Hoscar.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be voting against this tonight, and I'll be voting against it based on what Councillor Birtwistle says. I fully agree with Councillor Birtwistle what he says. He makes a lot of good points, and I'll be going against it. I don't like the flooding complications risk. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hoscar. And back to Councillor Birtwistle. You need to unmute, Councillor Birtwistle.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Graham will remember, I think she was the Chief Planning Officer at Burnley Council when there was proposal to put a school on this site some years ago, and it was turned down because the site was totally and utterly unsuitable for various reasons, on traffic grounds, on the environmental grounds, on all the grounds that I've mentioned today. it was turned down was the school. So, and things haven't changed. The site is still the same. Councillor Graham says that the other sites round the back of Billington Road and Farrington Road are unsuitable. Has Councillor Graham actually been down there to have a look? The sites are far more suitable. They're flat, they're not digging into a hillside, and they're far easier to develop. Now, it might be that the developer hasn't been round to look at that or made an offer to buy that site. That might be the issue. But the site at the back of Farrington Road and Billington Road, there is room round there to extend the existing site, which will actually not entail digging away the hillside that we've got there. That's got mine workings. They'll probably dig those out. They're so shallow in the bottom of the hill, and create the hassle that it will cause on Rossendale Road. I really find some of the comments that we get from some of the councillors who I'm pretty sure they haven't been to have a look, to say that a certain site is unsuitable. I asked Councillor Graham, why is the site around the back of Farrington Road and Billington Road just to extend those two to provide these industrial units, which I agree absolutely we need, but we don't need them on that field. There's absolutely no need to put another entrance into that field. There's no need to put people's lives at risk with big 40-foot articulated lorries pulling out onto a 4-lane road. There's absolutely no need for any of that when we've already got the entrances down at the other ones, and all they have to do is extend round the back of there where nobody lives, where nobody will be affected. I just don't understand why we have this situation where we don't need to do this, and we can provide the land to provide the industrial units that we want. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Birtwistle. I've got Councillor Johnston wishing to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Whatever Councillor Birtwistle may think, I actually know this site pretty well. He's not entirely correct what he says about the school. There was an original proposal when building schools for the future was happening for a 1,500 place school on that site. The proposals were scaled down mercifully to the 750 place school that we now have on Coldclough Lane. I don't think it got as far as the planning system. I don't think a planning application was actually put in, but I do remember walking the site with County Councillor Tony Martin and saying to the education officers, this is not a good idea, not because of the site, but on educational grounds. I went to the Wagoners on those far off days when you could actually leave your house without getting arrested. And the Wagoners has a pretty good menu, but it's also got a really spectacular view of this part of Burnley. And I have to say, when you look down on Burnley from the Wagoners car park, and you see the number of tin roofs which are sort of massing together in this part of Burnley, it is of concern. And it's not really a particularly pleasant sight when you go up. You go up and have a look sometime and you see what I mean. But that having been said, and I do understand the residents' concern, I think Councillor Harbour makes a very good point about the wider interests of the borough. And assuming we ever come out of this terrible pandemic, we need to have that industrial infrastructure, which is going to attract companies and attract jobs and attract people into the town. If we don't, we'll just get left behind. We really will. We talked about some of these issues at full council last night, and I don't think it's appropriate that we talk about them again. What I would say to Councillor Birtwistle as well is that you say, well, why do we need to do this? Why don't we just extend existing sites? This site is so attractive because it has direct access onto the road network. By extending the existing sites, you wouldn't be offering a potential developer as much of an attractive site as this one. I can hear and I can understand the residents' concern, but I do think it's probably in the wider interests of this town, of its economy, of its future, that we approve this application.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Johnson. And if I can bring back in Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, Councillor Birtwistle knows the history of the site quite well, and as Councillor Johnson pointed out, it never actually got to the planning application stage, and that was mainly because we were concerned with bringing the school nearer into the community in which it would serve. And the Building Schools for the Future looked at a number of sites all over the borough. When Councillor Birtwistle talks about why can't they build an extension to the Farringdon Road site or Network 65 or whatever, we can't provide those sites. We don't own those sites. Presumably they're in private ownership. And it's a bit of a red herring, really, because we only have to look at this application that's before us. We can't sort of turn this down and say to the applicant, go and look somewhere else. We have to take this application as it is before us and determine it tonight on the basis of all the information we've got. And on the basis of all the information we've got and the officer's assessment of the information, we should be content that this site is suitable for employment use and that there are no substantial opposition objections to it. And we should move, well, I've already moved to approve it, and we should approve the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graham.
Councillor Anwar requested to speak, Chair.
Yeah, right. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Chair. It just a few things, a few points, and I think they've been made by a number of colleagues already. Just the first one that in terms of what Councillor Harbour was saying is that we need to support local business, and especially post-pandemic, and making sure that we can survive this as a town. And I fully take that on board, but I also have sympathy with the comments that have been made by Councillor Birtwistle and others around the impact that this is going to have on those residents that live literally across the road, and also in terms of where the entrance for this site would be, right at the bottom of the steep hill. And I know the area well, and it is a very busy road, and we can't shy away from the fact that that is going to have an impact. And I'm surprised, to be honest, that Highways haven't put in an objection to this because of the impact on traffic further down. I know work is going on further down the road as you get to Accrington Road, going in towards Network 65 with the widening of the road there, which I take on board. But it's just something that Councillor Harbour said, is that when it's about working with the applicants and making sure that the impact can be reduced in terms of on the landscaping, and making sure that it does fit in, if that is something that can be done. And it was the officer who said that this is an outline plan, so there's a potential to work with them. The issue we've got here is that if we've not got any planning reasons for turning it down, how do we do that? So it's making, am I entirely happy with it? No, but what we need to do is find a way that this can work for everybody involved, because it is going to have an impact on the residents and also on the whole of that area looking across there, as Councillor Johnson said, in terms of when you look at that area, look down, and that's all you see. So it does have an impact. But we need to find out if there needs to be a planning reason for turning this down, and there doesn't appear to be one at this moment in time.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. Have we anyone else? It has been moved and seconded for approval.
Yeah. Chair.
Is that Councillor Hosker?
It is.
Yes.
I'd like to propose it's refused, and I'd like a name vote, please.
I think procedure is now we take the first the first motion first, and then if that falls, you're quite welcome to put in a proposal. Bearing in mind that if you put in a proposal for turning it down, You must base it on planning grounds. Okay.
Yeah, but we can also get a name vote, can't we, Chair? I'm glad John Arbor thinks it's funny, but you know, I like to have a name vote. I like to know where we're going with these things.
Chair,
You can ask for a name
Chair,
vote
Chair,
later on.
Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Chair, can I just say that when we go to the vote, it's actually a name vote.
Well, well, indeed, I suppose it is really, as you
Well,
quite well
yeah,
pointed out, Councillor Arbor.
all votes are name votes because we have to say whether you're for or against, and they're recorded in the minute book. So there's no point asking for a name vote. You've already got one.
You want to be smart about this? What about a recorded vote then? Does that sound better to you?
It's recorded anyway. It's recorded on YouTube.
Please,
Right.
Chair, I'll leave it with you.
Chair, I think that the point perhaps Councillor Hosmer in the minutes, if we do have asked for a name vote, it will be recorded in the minutes. So I take your point that it's recorded on YouTube, but if there is a name vote, it will be recorded in the minutes.
Right, maybe draw John Arbor a picture.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that, Councillor Hosker.
What do we
You
have to
draw
do
the
for this?
picture.
What do we have to do? How many? So I would got to,
So I will take a vote on whether members wish to have a name vote.
yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Frank Camp, do you wish to have a name vote?
No.
No. Councillor Mark Payne, do you wish to have a name vote?
No.
Councillor Afraiz Anwar, do you wish to have a name vote?
No.
Councillor Gordon Birtwistle, do you wish to have a name vote?
Yes.
Councillor Peter Gill, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes.
Councillor Sue Graham, do you wish there to be a named vote?
No.
Councillor Sarah Hall, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes.
Councillor John Harbour, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes.
Councillor Alan Hosker, do you wish there to be a named vote?
And they said no then, yes.
Councillor Mohammed Ishtiaq, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Ishtiaq, didn't hear that.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus Johnson, do you wish there to be a named vote? Sorry, Councillor Johnson, I think you need to mute you.
Apologies, no.
No, thank you. Councillor Anne Kelly, do you wish there to be a named vote?
No.
No. Councillor Lubna Khan, do you wish there to be a named vote? No. Councillor Jeff Sumner, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes, why not?
And Councillor Neil Mottershead, do you wish there to be a named vote?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so there's 8 votes. So we will proceed with the name vote. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So the motion is to approve the application. So can I ask Councillor Frank Camp, do you wish to? Are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Payne, are you for approval or for approval of the application or against approval of the application?
Against.
Against approval. Councillor Afraiz Anwar, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
For.
Councillor Gordon Birtwistle, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
Against.
Councillor Peter Gill, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
I'm against approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Graham, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
I'm for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Hall, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
Against.
Councillor John Harbour, are you for approval of the application or against?
For approval.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Hoster, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
Definitely against.
Councillor Mohammed Ishtiaq, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
For.
Councillor Marcus Johnson, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
For.
Councillor Anne Kelly, are you for approval of the application or against approval?
I'm for approval.
Councillor Lubna Khan, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
For.
Councillor Jeff Sumner, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
Against.
Councillor Neil Mottershead, are you for approval or against approval of the application?
Against.
Against. Thank you. So the application is approved. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So we'll go back to the agenda. Next item on the agenda is decisions under the scheme of delegation. That's item 7. Has anyone any comments on the delegated decisions? Can I take that as a no? Right, if that's the case, I'll close the meeting and thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Right.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, then.